Sherry, superb stuff. And let's speak now to one of Tony Blair's former special advisors, John McTernan. John, welcome to the show. Always a pleasure to have your company. Now, before the general election, we were told of this relighting of the fire of optimism. A lot of people said, John, that Sir Keir Starmer was Tony Blair in disguise. If only. When you were working with Tony Blair back in the day, that election, that campaign, that first year was defined by its almost unbridled optimism. The energy, the positivity we saw came out of that campaign was infectious, no matter what your politics. In stark contrast, John, this first couple of months of Starmerism seems to have been a real downer. Is that a mistake?
It's not even 2 months yet. It was July the 4th, the election. It's weeks since the general election. And the truth is the inheritance that Tony Blair had was much better, economically much better in terms of the rising tax revenues for the government. Labour's inherited lots and lots of hidden problems. The prisons one was an obvious one. Lots of problems which were stoked before the election by the Tory government, like the riots. And Labour's handling everything, I think, really well, really professionally. So, and the one thing that Keir was elected for was to be a guy who'd level with you and then have a plan to deal with the issues he was talking to you about. So I fully expect to see a plan as well as a diagnosis tomorrow. And you've seen Labour moving swiftly to deal with issues, whether it is the prisons inheritance or the much deferred pay deals for rail workers or for junior doctors. All those issues were kicked down the road by the Tories. They've been dealt with by Labour, and I think that's the thing which is, Starmer's mark as a politician is he'll level with you and then he'll fix it.
The trouble with that, though, John McTernan, is that we've seen a 6% downturn in the Labour Party's popularity. That vote largely seems to have slipped over to the Reform Party. And I wonder if that's because you say that Labour's getting things done. It's getting things done by letting criminals out early at the same time as locking up people for posting Facebook messages. It tells us there's a £22 billion black hole, but then it throws a further £10 billion into that black hole by giving pay rises for the unions, for NHS, for teachers, for train drivers, for junior doctors, all of which the public has to pay for. So we were promised optimism. Instead, we're having prisoners being let out early and a bigger and bigger financial debt, which taxpayers have got to pick up.
People are being correctly sent to prison for racist riots in which they intended to burn people alive because they were brown or because they were black. Those are actually offences. And the idea that you take it lightly, that people have been in prison for being racist rioters, is a striking part of the discourse post the riots.
Where were people attempted to be set on fire, John?
In Rotherham, they've been trying to burn that hotel and burn people alive.
And that was a terrible, terrible thing to do. Well, that was, one or two individuals, and they absolutely deserve to be jailed. Sir Keir Starmer in Northern Ireland was characterising the riots, the whole riots, as racist riots. That's been part of the backlash. There's a feeling, John McTernan, that anybody who's complained about the symptoms, the causes behind these riots potentially, has been branded as racist. When the riots happened in 2011 in Tottenham, when the black community experienced social discourse, Sir Keir Starmer then was in charge of banging people up. That bit happened, but there was also then a conversation about the frustrations and the reasons behind it. Do you think that's going to happen under this Prime Minister of the white working classes or not?
I deeply, deeply regret that there was not a proper inquiry like the Scarman report after the London uprisings. Absolutely regret that. But as for your suggestion, which I think is beneath you, that the rioters, the racist rioters, were in some way expressing anything on behalf of the white working class of Britain, I totally disagree with that. I think it's extraordinary that you think that racist rioters who tried to burn people Like we're saying
No,
something.
I'm not saying that, John. John, what you're doing, John, what you're doing here is that you're trying to take the actions of a couple of contemptible people who deserve to be in the jail as symptomatic of everybody who expressed a concern about those riots. And you wouldn't do that about the 2011 riots. You wouldn't say that the worst perpetrators there represented everybody who was frustrated about the lack of social cohesion, would you? So why are you doing it now?
No, I'm saying there's a really straightforward lesson to be learned from the racist riots, and that is we have a huge issue in Britain.
Keep calling them racist riots.
Well, that's because they were racist riots.
Everybody who took part was a racist.
We have a huge issue in Britain. Let's say we have a huge issue in Britain because there's a minority of people who refuse to integrate with British society. They refuse to accept the norms of British society. They refuse to accept that we are a multi-faith, multi-ethnic society. And those white racist rioters deserve to be met with the full force of the law.
John McTernan, do you think that people who come into the United Kingdom and refuse to integrate in terms of speaking the language, or they live in silos aside from wider society and they don't integrate, are they also a problem? Or is it just the white people looking in who think that could be an issue? I mean, does this go every way, or is it just white people that are a problem?
I'm telling you, the integration problem is these white people who refuse to accept that we are a multi-ethnic, multi-faith society. These white people who decide to show us what they think of our country, of our norms, by attacking police in riots, who show us what they think by burning down a citizen advice bureau. They show us what they think by trying to burn people alive because they're white or because they're brown. These are the people who don't integrate, and they need to first be dealt with, and then they need to be taught a way to integrate into the norms of 21st century UK.
What about the over 140 arrests at the Black Lives Matter riots? What about when officers have been firebombed of Labour MPs by pro-Palestine protesters? Do you share similar chagrin for that? Or is your chagrin only directed at white people?
So the disturbances at the end of one of the Black Lives Matter rallies was dealt with by the police properly, and people were arrested and prosecuted properly. That's what the police do. They arrest and prosecute people possibly. But the notion that there are any legitimate concerns being expressed by racist rioters is utterly untrue. And their actions should be condemned. And the notion that they represent or speak for anybody is the most condescending thing that I've ever heard expressed about the white working class.
I think as a member of the white working class who grew up a proud member of the white working class, to hear you saying that anybody who took part in those riots is racist, I think is ultimately contemptible. I really do. How can you say that everybody who took part in that shared the sentiments of a tiny minority who deserve to be jailed? You would never say that about the Tottenham riots, would you? You would never say that.
What I don't understand is why you think that people who demonstrating about refugees, asylum seekers, in a hotel in Rotherham and try to burn them alive or anything other than racist, or the people
I'm not saying that.
who try to riot in sympathy and burn down things across the country.
I'm absolutely not saying that. I've never said at one point ever that I express sympathy with those who try and burn things down. What I'm saying is to intimate that those tiny minority represent the majority is, I think, beneath you, John McTernan.
Look, you go along to a racist riot, you're a racist. That's it. It's really straightforward. There's no difficulty for me to say that you're attending a racist riot, you're throwing rocks at the police, you're trying to hold the police off from enforcing law and order, and you're doing that on behalf of racists who are trying to burn people alive. You're a racist. I mean, he looks like a racist, talks like a racist, acts like a racist, is a racist. The same thing with ducks, you know that.
Astonishing. Absolutely astonishing that you think that anybody who goes on a riot, at what point do they become racist? When they turn up at the beginning, or only when things get violent? Are they racist from the outset, or only when it kicks off?
Mate, you're trying to distinguish between good rioters and bad rioters.
I'm talking about people at social protests Okay,
you
you're
were
allowed to
defending the right
protest.
thing.
But then when it kicks off, you then say, well, everyone was racist at the outset. It's astonishing.
People didn't go to those riots thinking they were attending a prayer vigil. They knew what they were attending. They were attending a racist riot. And oddly enough, I think I'll give people the agency and I've got the decency to accept. People have agency. You go to a racist riot, you're probably a racist.
John McTernan, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks for joining us on the show today.
Welcome.